Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the We Believe Do You Paranormal Podcast. I'm Eric.
And I'm Michelle. And today we have a friend of mine named Keith. And give us a little introduction. Keith, who are you?
All right. Well, very happy to be on here with you guys. My name is Keith Murphy. I am a career martial arts instructor, which is actually where I met Michelle. Through a time with our association, our martial arts association. Kind of getting together, California for trainings and testings and so forth. I am 30 years old. I live in Toms River, New Jersey. So if anybody's familiar with like Jersey Shore, we're like 10 minutes from where that was all filmed, right? Just to give you,
Nice.
a little bit of perspective. That's pretty much it. That's my day in, day out.
Yeah. Fun fact, guys, I'm a black belt.
Fun fact, guys, I'm also a black belt, but not in the same association.
It's a pretty awesome association. So, Keith, I didn't really get a whole lot of backstory as far as like what you're going to share with us today. So I'm excited to hear what this actual story is. Plus, maybe you can share a few others with us after that.
Sure. All right. Do you guys want me to just kind of dive right into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So from my experience now, I grew up in Jackson, New Jersey my whole life, as far as being a kid. And we had this house that was very unique, right? Any one of my friends that had ever come to my house, they'd always, loved being there. It's just really cool architecture, just a very different design. So there were a lot of bedrooms, right? And I grew up in a family where at one point we had 9 people living in that house, right?
Wow.
And everybody had their own room and everybody had their own space. So that kind of gives you a little perspective on the size. And there was one room that kind of, like my brothers and I, we kind of like rotated every couple of years when, somebody would move out, then somebody would move to that room and then, and so forth, right? So when my brother was a teenager, I'd say he's probably 10 to 12 years old, somewhere in that range. He got the good idea one day to take a box of crayons and melt them on the baseboard heater, right? So imagine crayons like melting on a heater,
no.
right? How terrible that is. So he gets in a ton of trouble from my mother, and he's got to go up there to clean it up. He's up there. He's trying to scrape, crayon out of the carpet and all that. And out of nowhere, apparently, this is what I was told, the drawer of his dresser, like a smaller one, pops out of the dresser and wiggles its way down the floor to the bedroom door.
What?
And so he's in his room like, I just got in trouble. I just did something stupid, cleaning up. And then that happens, right? He didn't know what to make of it. He just, gets up, runs out of the room. My mom doesn't believe, anything because she's an old Italian woman. She's just like, nah, whatever, get back up there, clean this up, trying to get away with it. Right. So that happened. God, I must have been a baby, maybe 2 years old or so. So fast forward a couple of years, and I distinctly remember when I moved to that room, walking into my room one night, and I had this windbreaker suit. I mean, this is like the early 90s, so everybody had like some weird color windbreaker suit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mine was green and purple.
I remember. I think I had the same one. So I distinctly remember walking into my room, and this damn thing was on my bed, and the whole windbreaker suit gets up and starts walking towards me.
What the fuck? Oh, no.
And it's the same room that this happened to my brother years prior to. Now, I'm a kid. Like, I'm probably 6, 7 years old, right, give or take, and freaked me out. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, right, I don't know, but like I was into a lot of horror movies as a kid. I grew up with 5 older siblings. So whatever they were watching, I was watching. If my brother was watching, I don't know, The Exorcist, I'm 5 years old going, hell yeah, this is great. I loved it. I thought it was hysterical. Right. Yeah. So like, that was my mentality at the time as a kid. Like I was, seeing horror movies and action movies and all that. But this scared me. Like watching The Exorcist at 5, I was fine. Walking into my bedroom and seeing, this thing coming at me was so weird.
Yeah, it's very different seeing it come like in real life as it is watching
In
an
the
episode.
screen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. And I mean, we're talking 20 something years later. I remember sleeping downstairs on the couch for what felt like years. It was probably months. If I really go back to it, I talk to my mother about it. It's probably a month or two or so. But I wouldn't go into my bedroom unless the lights were on or it was daylight. Like that was it for the longest time. And as far as I know, there was never really anything else that happened, in that room or anywhere else specifically in the house. Like every once in a while, we would kind of notice something out of place or whatever, but that was really it. But I just remember as a kid that one thing, and ever since then, I've always had like a walk in the room, got to turn the light on first.
Yeah.
Walk in the room, look around, see what's going on, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. Check every corner, kind of deal. Ever since then, when I was a kid. But that was really my first time ever experiencing anything that I couldn't explain. And a little more backstory about myself is that I'm not a huge believer in all this, but I have experienced some things that I just can't explain.
Right.
Right. So there's got to be something to that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person.
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, it's beyond my understanding. So until there's a way for me to understand it better, I just chalk it up to whatever it is, and just try to not dwell into it too much. But I do remember certain things. And like, that was one that, 23, 24 years later, I still remember like vividly. Like I could see it. I remember the color of the room. I remember the color of the carpet. I remember exactly where my bed was, where this damn, windbreaker suit was coming towards me, and just running back down the hall, down the stairs. Like I can see it, like as clearly as I'm seeing you guys right now.
Besides you two, like there was none of your other brothers or sisters or whatever had any experiences besides that you know of, or that they've maybe talked about?
At the time, no. At the time, my family is not a very talk about their feelings kind of family, right? Okay. So if something happened, it might have been like a funny story, and then it kind of gets all looped in with whatever funny stuff's going on. Everybody's cracking jokes at each other. Excuse me. Everybody's cracking jokes at each other, so it's kind of hard sometimes to really decipher what happened versus what's a joke, right? And we're kind of the family that we, we'll share a couple stories around the dinner table every once in a while on a holiday, but we like to like live in the now. Not as much in the past. There's not a lot of past stories that get brought up. Like I don't know a lot about like my mother's childhood or anything like that. Right. She just doesn't talk about it. You know what I mean? And I don't ask. It's something I could do more often. But as far as things happening in that house, I can't think of anything else specifically for that house. There was another example that I'll get into that was around the same time period, maybe a couple years later. Which was the passing of my grandmother. Okay. And that experience, that was pretty wild, actually. That was, like I said, when you guys are ready, I'll go into that one.
Yeah.
But,
so, okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is because what it kind of sounds like to me, and it was something that I was kind of like hearing about recently, looking into and stuff like that, was poltergeist activity. So what I always thought poltergeist was, and because of the movies and stuff like that, right? Yeah. I always thought a poltergeist was a spirit, like a separate entity and stuff like that starts doing mischievous things around the house, opening cabinets, flinging plates, throwing drawers, moving lights, turning them off and on and off, and all that stuff. But what I just recently found out, or started like kind of learning about, was that a poltergeist is actually a person. So like, it's not like a separate spirit. It's the energy from a person that's causing things to happen inside the house. So if somebody gets stressed out, or somebody is like having all these, like getting all these emotions that they're not like kind of releasing, they can start, or their energy can start making things happen, like pulling out drawers, making the suit stand up and walk towards you. So that's why I was asking if other things happened, and if those kinds of issues or things are never really dealt with, like even if you change houses, you can start having experiences in other houses similar to that because of that poltergeist activity. So that's the reason why I was asking about other experiences and stuff like that, Michelle.
But super quick, I just wanted to add, like, going on with the poltergeist activity, there's also this like trend that happens with poltergeist activity that it's usually when someone in the house, typically females, are like going through like puberty or like getting close to those ages. Like it's just like so much shit is like happening in their lives. And like you said, Eric, more stress, like more like what the hell is happening to me? Why am I feeling this way or whatever? And that it can like, yeah, project just poltergeist activity. And one of the other things that I've like read or looked into or like seen a trend of is aliens can also cause poltergeist activity. But we won't get into that. Yeah, anyway. But what I mean, does any of that like
ring true or sound
yeah,
like
or
No, it definitely does, and it's actually got me thinking too, because actually recently, within the last week, I had an experience happen in my house now. Something that I couldn't really explain, and
here come the
without getting
chills.
into too much details of it, there was a little bit of stress in the household, and then it was like right as that was like hitting like a climax of how bad it was, like that night had an experience of something weird.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll get to that one a little later because like that's a more recent. I'll go right to the middle one if you guys are ready for that.
Yeah.
So I was 11 and my grandmother was in the hospital for lung cancer. And it was kind of one of those situations where she was fine one day and then like a month later she goes to the doctor and they're like, whoa, you have lung cancer. And then like just tapered downhill quickly. Right.
Yeah.
I'm grateful she didn't suffer, long, but, there was one night I remember we were visiting her. I believe it was me, my mother, my sister, maybe my cousin was there, and we're in her room. She's all, I don't know if she was doped up on pain medication or whatever, but my grandmother was very lucid at the time. And, we're talking about a woman who was in her early 80s and pretty rambunctious, pretty lively woman when she was healthy. But when she started tapering down, I mean, she was like, in the fetal position in her bed for the most, most of the time towards the end. Well, this one day she was sitting up in the bed. She's talking to everybody. She's having a great time, big smile on her face. And we're all sitting there. This is pretty late at night. And we're wearing like those stereotypical, hospital, white blankets. We're all like covered up in blankets because it was cold in her room. Now, backstory, my mother's cousin, and it's kind of sad to say this, but I don't exactly remember her name. She had actually passed away of a brain tumor, like the week before this incident happened. And we did not tell my grandmother that my cousin had passed away because we didn't want to put any more stress on her. Right. So that had happened. That was done. She had passed. She, funeral, she was buried, everything was done with that. We're all sitting there talking to my grandmother. She's telling stories and she's singing songs and all this. And like, everybody's crying. Everybody's, kind of an emotional time, obviously. And out of nowhere, my grandmother sits around, she sits up, she looks at us like, you guys are so beautiful. You guys look like angels. And then she said my cousin's name and she said, she's here with us. And she wants everybody to know it's going to be okay. Wow. And she had no idea that my cousin had passed.
Wow.
Nobody told her. Right? And that's one thing I know my mother has been very adamant about. Nobody told her that. And she sat up, looked at us all, called us all angels. I mean, we're all wearing white. I get it. She was maybe in like a lucid state. But then when she brought my cousin into the conversation, it was like, that was wild.
That's beautiful.
That was like absolutely wild.
Waves of chills. That is awesome.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Like when people have those experiences of family members coming in, and visiting again, or just to kind of make you feel like, okay, yeah, everything's good,
Well, and then like situations like that, like how can you not believe that, yeah, there is something after death. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's no way that your grandmother would have known, but your cousin was there. Like, she showed up. I don't know. It's beautiful.
And especially, I guess, for her too, because like, you know, you're like you said, she was good one month, and then the next month she's, you know, she finds out, oh, I have cancer, and then like later on, it's like, or like she starts to go, like you said, downhill pretty quickly. You know, it's kind of like a comfort to be like, okay, you know, everything's going to be good, you know, and then also to give everybody else a peace of mind, because I'm sure, I know when our grandmother was going through all of that, we were kind of like, you know, didn't know what was going to happen. You know, we were scared, you know, we didn't want her to pass and stuff like that. So I'm sure it was a comfort for you guys too, to hear like, you know, everything's going to be okay type of thing, you know? So
absolutely. You know, and again, as a young kid, first real experience with a family passing, you know, family member passing away. It was, I don't want to say I don't want to say traumatizing, but it was definitely a learning experience. There's a big learning curve there. I've never experienced that. It's like, you know, I was a kid that was raised by his grandmother. You know, when my parents were working, I was over her house, you know, and being chased around with the wooden spoon and getting in trouble for everything. Like me and my grandmother were close. And, you know, I do wish, you know, to this day that I was older to appreciate who she was more. Unfortunately, she passed when I was at like an age where just, you know, nothing matters. You know, you take everything for granted.
For sure.
But, you know, there were a couple fun stories about her that always come to mind when I think of her. And, you know, I've got a picture of her in my house, you know, that I always just keep up on the shelf too. But that one experience of her in the hospital, like I don't think I'll ever forget that. Because that was just, I don't know where that came from. I don't know what that was. You know, I guess I have a hard time believing, even though it's right in front of my face sometimes. Like that was, there was something to that, because
for sure.
she just shouldn't have known that. You know?
Yeah. And it's one thing to I don't know. Yeah, that like she actually saw her there. Like that's what like blows my mind. Not just knowing like, oh hey, yeah, I know that she passed. It's like, no, she's standing right there. That's the awesome part of it.
She was there, you know, she was there with us. And the crazy part to me is, like I said, I never really knew her, my cousin. Like I have a gigantic family. I mean, I probably have a fourth or fifth cousin at this point. And, you know, people talk about their, you know, first cousin, second, third. I'm talking multi generations of people who, you know, a lot of them I've never met before. You know, I don't know everybody that's in my actual family, and I'm sure I've met this, you know, cousin at a wedding or something like that. But the fact that she was there in the room, it's just weird. You know what I mean? It's weird, but it's also very nice. Right? It's a nice touch. But yeah, I mean, I had similar situations after my father passed away too, where there was just like weird things would happen. Like my father was a heavy smoker. So after he passed away, you know, we were, you know, taking stuff out of his house and, you know, trying to either throw stuff out or seeing what we wanted to keep. And everything was just so like nasty, from, you know, cigarette smoke smell. And there was just very few things any of us wanted. So a lot of the stuff kind of got thrown out. You know, my two sisters, you know, they took some things. I took a couple things. And one thing that I did take was a poster, probably about 2.5 feet long, of the Golden Gate Bridge. And my dad loved the Golden Gate Bridge. He always thought it was amazing. He always wanted to go to California. He always wanted to drive across it. That was one thing he always wanted to do. And you know, it's funny because we were talking about martial arts before. You know, anytime I took a trip to California, he would always, you know, be like, hey, you know, take me with you. And I was like, I really can't. Like, I'm kind of busy. I don't really have time to go sightseeing. And my father passed away 5 days before the 2016, you know, black belt mastery test. So this is a test where, you know, all the high-ranking black belts in our association, we all get together to test for what's called the mastery rankings, which is 4th degree and higher, right? So it happens once every 4 years. Everybody's putting tons of work to get there, you know, to, you know, do the best job they can. And I was still pretty new to the association at the time, so I was, you know, putting in double time to try to catch up to be ready. And, you know, lo and behold, you know, Murphy's Law kind of kicks in, and 5 days before the test, my dad, passes away. So the day before I got on a flight to go to California, I had my father's funeral, right? And then like from there, went right back to my apartment and started training. Right? That's the first thing I did as soon as I got home. Took my suit off, started training grappling, right? Because I had to get on the plane the next day. Where this all ties in was one of the things we did on Tuesday of that test, which was called a Go Ruck Light, which is pretty cool team building experience. If anybody gets a chance to look up Go Ruck, check that out. We actually ran across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah,
and that was like my father's dream, was like to just experience the Golden Gate Bridge, not just drive across it, run it, but I got a chance to run across it. And when I actually, I'm kind of bouncing around the story here, but when I got home from the tests, my sisters were in the process of cleaning out the house. So I was away, for that whole week. And they asked me if I wanted that poster of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I don't know, that was just weird how that all kind of tied together, where that was something he always loved. He always, admired and wanted to, be a part of that. He passes, and then I get a chance to run across the Golden Gate Bridge, come home. What's waiting for me is a poster that was in his house. One of the few things that wasn't completely smoke damaged and, disgusting. And I actually have that in my school. So that's in my office in my school. And I've got one parent at my school. She's a highly spiritual person. Well, really two people, and both of which have said that they felt my father's energy in the school. And it's always ironic that when they tell me these things, when they're talking about it, is usually a day where I'm kind of having some thoughts about him, or, just thought of a story, or you came across a picture on Facebook or something. And then one of these parents will come in and they're like, hey, kind of feel your father around here. Just want you to let you know that he's with you. It's kind of weird, right? And then I thought I was going to change because I moved my school from one location to another last year. And one of the first things I brought with me was that poster, put it back up. And then I started getting those parents saying the same thing in the other location. So I agree with what you're saying that, as far as like a poltergeist goes, it's not necessarily about one place, but that energy, whether it's positive or negative, can follow you. And in this situation, I'm glad it's following me, right? If that is something, if that's something that's real, I'm glad it's real. I'm not going to shy away from it just because I can't, physically see him or touch, or, have a conversation. But knowing that, he's there, and he was the reason I got into martial arts. He's the one that put me into it. It's definitely nice. It's very cool. I like that.
The mastery test alone, sorry, Eric, was just like a super emotional experience just in general. Like, and I didn't even have to deal with, I knew your story. I knew what had happened because, they had kind of talked about it a little bit. And at that point, I didn't really even know you. But now that I know that backstory of the Golden Gate Bridge was something that your dad always, wanted to drive over, and then I had a smile on my face the whole time because I knew where you were going with it, and I knew like what the last little challenge was for that Go Ruck was to go over the Golden Gate Bridge. I was like, oh my god, it's such an awesome thing that happened, or synchronicity, I guess, right? And then coming home to a poster of the Golden Gate Bridge. That I don't know. I think,
and that's the weird part about it is like none of it would have made sense in the moment. I guess the more that I think about it, because this is a, again, a topic that I don't, respectfully, I don't spend as much time thinking about on a day-to-day basis, but it's something that I'll look back at, like you said, hindsight's 20/20, and I'll look back and be like, damn, that was weird. Like at the moment I'm like, whatever. Right. Yeah. I just pass it off because I try to live in the moment so much that when I see something, and if I can do something about it, like if it's a negative situation or something that needs to be fixed, I can do something about it right then and there. Great. If I can't, I move it and I handle what I can handle at the time. So if something comes up that I just don't get, unless I have the time at the moment to try to understand it, I push it off. It's just how my brain works. So in situations like my grandmother or like that stupid, fucking windbreaker. I hate that damn thing. Every time I see a picture, anytime somebody posts like some '90s retro crap, I'm like, nah, put that away. I don't ever want to see that.
That's your clown. What's it called?
That's my clown.
Yeah.
Exactly. The ugliest damn jacket I've ever seen.
You shouldn't have said that. You know what I'm going to be sending you later? Like fucking 3:00 in the morning. It's just a picture of a windbreaker.
Well, I know what the not the thumbnail, but like the pictures that we're gonna post up are gonna be windbreakers. On the Facebook page.
I'm gonna find the perfect one. I'll send it to you.
All right,
please do.
Like, I'll look back on it, whether it's a day later, an hour later, years later, and be like, okay, that was weird. You know what I mean? But I just keep moving forward. You know what I mean? And what really made the windbreaker thing weird, like I said earlier, was the fact that it happened in the same room that an experience my brother had that he couldn't explain had happened years prior, right? Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, he never had any other experiences in there, and neither did anybody else. But I thought that was cool to like find that out later on.
Yeah, no,
for sure.
Being on this with you guys, which I'm very grateful and honored to be here, it gets my brain thinking more. Like ever since I agreed to do this, I'm thinking like, oh, wait, I could talk about that or this. Like you start finding all those things that you put into, a certain cabinet in your brain just locked away. And then it just starts all coming back at it, So one other experience, and this isn't so much myself personally, but a close friend of mine at his mother's house, there was always an experience in this house. And the only thing that I witnessed of it was this experience with the cabinet. So in their kitchen, they had these cabinets that lined the wall. I mean, there was like more cabinets than there was any wall space. I never understood. I've never seen a kitchen like this. But anytime somebody would go in there, they'd close the cabinet doors, right? And then you walk out, you walk back in the kitchen, and multiple of them are going to be open again. Every time. They went as far as to put like Velcro on the inside of the door and thing, put them shut. Nope, back open. So like that was one experience. I mean, he always chalked it up. I think it was to his grandmother, kind of playing jokes on them. But that was one thing with that. I mean, again, I don't know. I always just thought it was funny because like I would go into the kitchen and close them again and walk out and kind of look back in like, oh, no, I guess you need another 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I forget about it and you walk back in there like an hour later and all the cabinets are open again.
Oh my gosh, no.
It'd just be so weird.
And like you couldn't hear them, or like it was just they just no. Especially with the like Velcro, you would think that you could hear it, but no.
No, it wasn't like a fast thing, like a bang or anything like that, or cabinet doors flying open. It was just more of like when you play a joke on somebody and you just want to just that subtle little that little thing, I got you kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's all it was, right? That's all it was. Trying to think what else.
It just sounds to me like Jersey's full of like poltergeists. They're like people who like to open cabinets and move furniture around
and fuck with windbreakers and throw drawers across the. Well, isn't it? It's like Weird New Jersey or something like that. Like, isn't that like a slogan? Or I was reading something or listening to another podcast, and they were talking about just like all the crazy shit that happens in Jersey. Like, there's so much weird stories.
I've heard some interesting things. There is I don't know if it's like an online. It's probably all online now, but I think there was like a magazine at one point called like Weird New Jersey.
Okay,
and it would like talk about different areas. Everything always centers on like the Jersey Devil and that whole conspiracy and all that, which I don't particularly know a lot about. I hope it's a real thing because I think that's pretty cool. Like that would just be awesome. But I also know that I don't know. I've never experienced it myself, so I can't really say one way or the other about it. But Jersey, just like a lot of places on the East Coast, being like the oldest part of the country as far as how the country was settled and so forth. There's a lot of interesting history because you've got hundreds and hundreds of years of history, whether it just be U.S. history, whether it be Native American, whatever there's a lot of history here. So like there's this one bar and restaurant that I used to go to all the time, where part of the walls and part of the ceiling were like the actual same wood from a tavern from the 1700s that they were able to preserve into the restaurant. So there's a lot of history, and that's like right in the area where the Battle of Monmouth happened during the Revolutionary War. So there's a lot of like ghost stories that go through that place about them seeing Revolutionary War, soldiers walking around, and like somebody go to the bathroom and there's like a British soldier in the bathroom, and like it's crazy. I've never experienced anything there personally, but it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah,
especially knowing that all happened right there.
I can't remember what the term for it is, but there's this theory or this thing
stone tape theory.
Yes, where stuff gets imprinted into like wood and stone and stuff like that. Yeah,
or buildings, the land,
kind of like a cassette tape type thing, where it just gets like imprinted or ingrained on it, and that's why if there's stuff like or wood from that old, from a long ago, you'll start to still get those experiences from that time period because of this theory. So that's really interesting.
Very
too.
Interesting.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off on like your personal stories. Kind of went on a tangent there about just Jersey in general. But if you were going to say something else,
I mean, besides the thing when I was a kid with the with the suit, I've only had one other situation that has ever scared me, and this is what I was saying before. This actually happened this past week.
Right.
Yeah. So in my house, I live with two roommates right now, my best friend and his girlfriend. And, just like roommates will happen from time to time, him and I have kind of had a little bit of strife with each other over the last couple of weeks. Thankfully, because we're such good friends, we were able to squash all that and, talk it out and move forward. But right as that situation started to kind of get to a head, one night I go to sleep, or at least I don't know if I was asleep. That's the thing. That's a weird thing about this. I don't know if this was a dream, but it felt so real that it scared me, because I typically don't remember my dreams almost ever. And I remember this. So I'm laying in my bed. I'm laying on my left side, and I hear some kind of a voice. It sounds like a female's voice. I don't know what it's saying. I have no idea. But I remember being completely paralyzed, like could not move. And I remember actually thinking, scream for help. And I couldn't. And that was the scariest part about it, was that I felt helpless. And it lasted a couple seconds. I mean, I don't know if I was dreaming. I don't know if I was awake. But when I woke up the next morning, first thing I did was, tell my roommates, like, what the hell? I don't know what the hell that was. Like, was something like, were you guys yelling at each other? Like, were you guys up, late talking or whatever? And they were passed out. They were asleep. They didn't hear anything. But it was a very short thing. I don't know why, but what you said before about like negativity or whatever going on in the house can kind of bring something about. And as soon as you said that, it took what you said and what happened and kind of meshed it together and made it make a little more sense. So that's why I wasn't even going to bring that up. And then what you said made me think of that. I was like, oh, wow, we were actually having a pretty negative time here. And then that happened. And since things have been better, I haven't had any issues. So I don't know what that was. I have no idea. But scared the hell out of me. Just not being able to speak was just like, that was weird. It was so weird. And I don't know if I was actually awake or dreaming. I'm not sure. Either way, it scared me.
Yeah, I think like a lot happens in that in between state of like being half asleep, half awake. From my understanding, that's essentially like what, if you know how to meditate well, that's what you're putting yourself in, that weird like in between of awake and asleep. And so yeah, like I think if you couldn't really tell whether you're awake or asleep, maybe you're in that weird phase, so it's easier for you to hear voices, or maybe thankfully you didn't see anything, right? I think that would have been a lot creepier.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, just it almost kind of also sounds like sleep paralysis, like not being able to move or say anything, just being stuck there. But yeah, I know sometimes I talk like I'm a ghost expert and I have all the answers, but things that I've like heard or seen, spirits, I guess, love negativity because that's like there's lots of energy there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially when people are arguing and like it's just so much like tension, so they can feed off of that.
Because it's not only yours, it's the other person's energy too. So it's like just like amplified.
Yeah,
and it's a very, I mean we see this even in politics and the news. What fuels ratings is going to be negativity. So it makes sense that if a spirit's going to feed on something, would be a negative thing, because we all look over positive things like it's no big deal, but then when something bad happens, that's what we talk about. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they can make you scared. Like, that's okay. Now that energy of just that fear energy is out there too, so they can just feed off of that, and that's why they just fuck around and start moving stuff, opening cabinets, making windbreakers walk.
God, now I'm gonna get one in the mail. I know you're gonna send me one now.
Probably something's gonna happen. Just wait, beware.
Yeah. Oh God, it'd be horrible. But yeah, I mean,
but it's gonna have the school logo and everything.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
you have to wear it.
But it's funny. I mean, if like, since people can't see you, like you're this like big like tattooed like super tough looking dude, and it's like, but he's afraid of windbreakers, guys.
Not all of them. Oh man. But yeah, that's the majority of my experiences, and as far as like my belief and understanding of everything goes, it's something that I've never really spent too much time dwelling into, or researching and trying to understand. But I think it's something that I probably will spend more time on now, that it's, in the forefront of my mind at the moment, and put a little more effort into trying to understand, because I do think there is something, and there is a reason why so many people have experiences and so many people go through, whether it be communicating with a loved one or something, negative, unfortunately, happening, and whatever that is. Like, I've always had a fascination with exorcist, possession kind of movies. Like, if I'm going to watch a horror movie, nothing gets me. Like, I hate to say it like this because I'm not like some devil worshiper or anything, but like, I get excited to watch a possession movie more than like a slasher film, or even like a poltergeist kind of, just ghost story. But if it's a possession movie, I love it. I find it so interesting.
Do you think that's because when you were younger, like you said, you saw The Exorcist when you were 5 with your brothers and sisters, and you thought it was the greatest thing? Do you think it has anything to do with that? Like, just because 100%. It brings back good memories, not so much negative?
100%. If I have to be fascinated by a certain genre of movies, it's horror, and specifically, possession.
Possession.
Yeah.
Like, there was a movie that came out maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Deliver Us from Evil. If you haven't seen that, check that out.
I heard. Is it Deliver Us from Evil, or is it just Deliver Us?
Deliver Us from Evil. It was with Eric Bana was in it.
Yeah, I saw but again, like, if I was with my wife at the time, I probably didn't watch it because she's not very much into horror.
Okay. Oh, no, I didn't see it. Oh God, no! I just looked up like the trailer, and the scariest shit. Like, I don't know if you can see it, Eric. Wait, where is it?
Yep.
Like, just that picture alone. Oh.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic, just like aliens. Aliens is a very interesting topic because I don't know. I mean, there's proof that there are, I mean, what was it? The government, like this last year, was just talking about how, we've known about this for a while.
Flying objects, yeah.
And what's crazy to me about that is, like, we've had so much of a messed up 18 months or so, because it really is not just 2020. There was a lot of stuff in 2019 that led into this year and all that. But we've had such a messed up world that we live in, that the government releasing, we know about aliens, or we know about spacecrafts or unidentified flying objects, whatever,
was just like,
people just Like people just swept it under the rug. Like, nah, bro, like that's nothing. Don't worry about it. Like, no shit, we know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just surprised it's not talked about more.
Yeah. No, that's because they had released these videos, or I guess like Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy. They had released it back in 2017, but the Pentagon was like, "Oh no, that's all bullshit." And then so finally this year they're like, "Okay, no, yeah, we've been studying these things. These videos are real." But it's like, and then and nobody reacted to it at all whatsoever. I was like, "No, but this is what you guys have been wanting. Why is no one talking about this?" But
and so far, a lot of the stories, a lot of the interviews that we've had have all been like more paranormal as far as like ghosts and stuff like that, or spirits or entities, stuff like that. And we're still kind of like waiting for that, UFO experience to come along. So
I'm waiting. I can't wait to just go off on this alien. I've been waiting for somebody to give me something about aliens. I'm so excited about this like 2-minute conversation that we're having right now.
You know what? I've never myself had any experiences where like I saw anything in the sky or anything like that. I personally hope it's a real thing. Yeah. Because if this is it, if we are the only living things in the universe, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of boring, you know?
Yeah. I feel like we can't be though. Like just out of all the billions and trillions and however like, many
mathematically,
more,
it's impossible.
It's impossible for us to be the only living thing in the world. I mean, in the galaxy, in the universe. You know.
So, I do hope that if whoever or whatever finds us, or maybe has been around, I hope that we can, as a species, as a planet, be something worth their time, and like it would suck to be like, all right, well, screw that place, it's like driving by the hood and like I don't want to go in there, I feel like that's what we are as a society. Like, what are we interesting enough that something capable of traveling, millions and billions of miles or whatever, cares enough to come here, right, to be around us, but maybe they were back in the day. Like there was all the talk about what's his name, Bob Lazar, and all his experiences and how he was treated and ridiculed and spent decades of his life trying to back up his stories, and then out of nowhere they're just like, yep, it's all real, and he's sitting back like, what the fuck? I've been saying this forever. You guys changed the course of my entire life because you wouldn't let me get the word out. He was just trying to. I mean, I guess at the time they really didn't like anybody being like a whistleblower. But now he's sitting back like, I told you, So who knows? If an alien lands in my driveway, he better be cool. That's all I know.
Right? Yeah.
Just be cool. Because I've seen Independence Day, and that didn't work out well. Yeah, alien stuff is it's interesting. It's just one of those things. I don't know. I think for me, I'd want to believe more in that. As far as, no, that's not the right way to say it. My brain would go more that direction than paranormal. Because again, if that is something, it's going to be tangible. I'm going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to be able to punch it in the face if I had to, right? Yeah. Or, give it a big hug, right? Yeah. I don't know. Because that, to me, that's more interesting. It's not even interesting. It's not even the right word. It's just where I'd be attracted to if I had to go two different paths.
I guess it's more interesting. Like that's what, like you said, that's more what you're. I mean, it's not whatever you say is not the wrong thing to say. You can say it however you feel. Like nobody's judging you. We're not judging you. Like it's like for me, it's like Michelle. Michelle has said multiple times that she's like into the paranormal stuff, but like what her brain usually likes to go more towards is like alien stuff, and I'm more. You said something similar.
I like fork in the road. I can go either way. You tend to just go paranormal way when I'm like, but aliens can also be a factor.
I guess it's also just because of the fact that I've like, out of all the paranormal experiences that we've had, I think we've had maybe one that could possibly have been an alien that I know of. I mean, maybe there've been more, but for me, like most of the experiences that I've had are more like spirit entity type experiences. So I guess that's why I lean more towards one than the other. And I guess for you, you know.
Well, I was just going to say, like, the reason when you're talking about poltergeist activity, and I was like, you know what else it could be is aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, it was a joke, but actually not really. Like, it could all possibly be the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we don't understand any of it, but that's what people, or at least, like I said, the podcast that I was listening to that kind of like brought that up was that, I mean, we don't understand any of this. Like, it could all be like an interdimensional, like, thing that we don't know, and it all just is in the same world, but it's not this world. So we don't understand it. We don't get it. We don't have science to like prove it yet or whatever, if that makes sense. It's just,
well, I guess that does make sense because again, in that movie Interstellar, like he's
with
moving the
books.
books. Yeah, he's moving the books. So then the girl's like, "Oh, my friend," and the dad's like, "What are you talking about?" And so like you kind of think, "Oh, is it a ghost?" But no, it was him in that fourth dimension, kind of like moving the books
being
into
a
like these Morse
poltergeist.
code.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I guess
Thank
I
you.
just made
You
your
see?
point for you.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. I mean, we really appreciate you coming on here with us, and I know you said you know, I don't want to. You said like something about it being an honor type of thing, but it's more of an honor for us having you on, and we really appreciate you being on here and being so open and, you know, willing to share stories. I know it's like for us, it's, I don't know. I feel like that's how you can have people connect more to what they're listening to, just the people coming on here being so personal, you know what I mean? And I really enjoy that.
Absolutely. And I guess, you know, what I mean by being, you know, being an honor is I mean, Eric, this is my first experience with you,
right?
But you know, I've known your sister for a couple years now, not too much, right? But I know, Michelle, you as a person, that you have. It takes a lot for you to express yourself, and when you do, it means a lot, right? You don't just talk to hear yourself talk, and that's why when you first posted about doing this podcast, I was like, shit, I got to listen to it because I know that if you got something to say, you have a lot of thought and a lot of meaning behind it. Right. Yeah. So I know that's really important to you. So I was like, you know what? Let me help out. Let me try to, you know, give you guys something else to go with, you know, and somebody else, especially I thought it would be kind of interesting too, hearing from somebody like me that's not like a strong believer, you know, that maybe does have his skeptical opinions and doubts and I don't know. I mean, it could be bullshit. It might not be. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I thought that might have brought like an interesting flavor on. So that's why I was, you know, big reasons why I was excited to be on here.
No, and I mean, you're spot on. Sometimes I wonder why I even started a podcast because I hate talking. Like you said, like if I say something, it's because like it does mean something. But other than that, like I'm not really going to say much. So yeah, the fact that you kind of caught on to that, yeah, you're right. And I loved having a semi-skeptic, someone like kind of on the fence. Like it's perfect because yeah, it's cool if everyone's a believer, but that's not reality. So to have someone that kind of like borders it, that's perfect. No, we definitely needed that. So I appreciate that.
And it, you know, like I said earlier, it ties back to what we were talking about, of like what a poltergeist is and how that can come about. Manifest. And as soon as you said that, Eric, I was like, shit, that's exactly what just happened. We had nothing but negativity in my house for a little while, and then boom, something happened. Like I get it, you know. So talking about things can always make you think a different way and open your eyes to different things, and hopefully more people will be a little bit more open to the possibility of there being something instead of just immediately shutting it down. Right. And whether it actually turns out to be real or not, I don't know. Right. But to be open and allow for, you know, open dialogue and all that, I think like a platform like this is really awesome to let people speak their minds and, you know, talk it out. I mean, this is the most I've ever talked about this stuff. Just, like it'll be in passing, you know, a little ghost story here and there around a fire pit, but that's like
an hour and a half of ghost stories.
And hey, listen, I'm awesome. Happy. This is great. This is, you know, one of the highlights of my weekend right now.
That's awesome.
I was doing this, so appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Is there anything? I mean, I obviously know that you have a school in Jersey. If you want to like promote that,
as far as promotion goes, you know, I'm the owner of a martial arts school in Jackson, New Jersey. Ernie Reyes West Coast World Martial Arts of Jackson. If anybody in that area is looking for a school, check us out, right? That'd be awesome. But anywhere else in the country, if there's an Ernie Reyes school, that's the place to go. Find it. If you got to drive a half hour, 45 minutes, it's worth it. Find one, get there. So, check it out, ErnieReyes.com. And yeah, that's my shameless plug.
Right? No.
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, and the link, guys, will be down in the description of our YouTube channel, and we'll post that on Facebook as well. So that will link to that, so y'all can check it out. If you are in the area, you can find that too.
I love how you're pointing down below as if anybody can see you right now. It's pretty great.
We gotta practice, because one day it is gonna be on video, so I gotta start practicing now.
There you go.
Okay. All right. All right. So just one more time, thank you so much for being on. We really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
okay.
man.
All right, guys. So that was my buddy Keith. What'd you think of his stories?
It was a lot.
It was.
I definitely think there's some poltergeist. I don't know who it was. Maybe him, maybe not. Maybe one of his sisters or his brother. But I definitely think there might be something to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he said that his siblings were all like 10 plus years older than him. So, I mean, I would imagine, like, I had kind of brought up that poltergeist activity happens when like people are going through puberty and whatnot. And like, if I'm sure it was like a household full of of that. So
yeah,
that could be a thing. But I'm just excited he brought aliens into it, even if it was for like 5 minutes. Got my fix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope we do get some more, I guess, alien stories, just because, like, I think we've only had like one experience that could possibly have been aliens. And then I don't think I've had any other experiences besides that. There's not a lot of people that I know that have had any kind of alien experiences. So I hope somebody out there can, send us a message, or, that wants to be interviewed, hopefully. And if not, just write it in. Because that would be interesting to listen to hear.
Yeah. And speaking of sending in stories, if you guys want to reach us, you can check out our social media. I'm going to turn it over to my brother because I can never remember the handles. So, brother?
Yeah, our Instagram is at We Believe Do You Podcast. Our Twitter is at WBDY Podcast. Our Facebook is We Believe Do You ? Or you can also get us at We Believe Do You Podcast. And our email is webelievedou@gmail.com. So if you have anything that you want to write us, stories that you want to write in English or Spanish, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you want to write us to tell us that you want to be interviewed, just let us know, and we can set up a time and a day for us to go ahead and do that with you guys. Because we really want to, like I said, hear those stories, whether it be ghost related or Bigfoot or UFOs, anything paranormal, anything unexplained. So yeah, shoot us a message, and follow us on all our social medias, on our Facebook and on our YouTube as well. Hit the like, the subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Review.
Oh yeah, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts as well. So yeah, do all that stuff, because we love you guys. We want to keep putting this content out for you, because we believe.
Do you?